All right. Hello, everybody. A little weird to be talking to you guys again without really knowing you, but I guess that's the way things go these days. Hopefully, you remember me from the video introduction I did with Tunde Shibomahin, author of Creative Hustle. Um, my name is Greg Watkins. For many years, I've been teaching in a humanities class at Stanford University called Structured Liberal Education. It's kind of a broad introduction to philosophy and religion and literature. It's a program that I was in as a freshman in college myself, and a program that Mr. Taubman, Mr. T, was in. So you can ask him about that. And kind of in line with the Creative Hustle stuff that we did with you guys, I'm working with Mr. T to bring some philosophical work to your classroom. And so this unit we've put together really has two big goals. One is a practical one, actually. We're asking you to use this new app from a company called Honor Education to work through this material. We want your feedback. Mr. Taubman and I want your feedback about how it goes for you. And the folks that work at Honor Education are going to be interested in your feedback. So a second big goal is an educational one, and that's to present philosophy as one way of thinking about all of the things you're going to be working on in Mr. T's class this entire year. I know a little bit about the course's bigger goals, and so this philosophy piece is just going to be one element among many, but that's what I'm here to help with. So in this first little video, we're going to do a thought experiment, and we're going to call it Imagining a Future You. Imagining a Future You. So this happened to me once, and in a way that changed my life. I was asked at a moment in my life to think about the future version of me, and it had a dramatic impact. So I'm going to tell that story as quickly as possible and not take too long, I hope. But here's how it went in my life when that happened. I was headed into my senior year of college, and my mom wanted photos of me, senior year photos. So she sends me to a photographer, and he's doing his thing, taking my picture. And he asked me quite naturally, "What's coming after college? Here it is, your senior year. What are you gonna do next?" Now, the short answer was that I was going to apply to law school. But I'm going to make a short digression here, which includes some philosophy also. So, my freshman year in college, I learned in philosophy distinction between means, 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 and ends, ENDS, means and ends. And it's one of the great things about philosophy that sometimes it just gives us language for things we already know. It allows us to see things more clearly, things that we're already that categories that will make sense to us. So here's my pitch about means and ends. Some things are a means to something else. So it's kind of a just plain language sense of that word means that I catch a bus to get to school. The bus ride is a means to the end of being at school. So means and ends, simple concepts, right? But then philosophy that thinks about this connection between these two words, you also encourages you to think about ends in themselves, so things that aren't a means. Now, in the bus example, you could imagine, I think it's a little hard to imagine, but you could imagine somebody for whom riding a bus is an end in itself. They just like riding buses. I know people who like to ride buses. So you could get on a bus just to ride it. The bus ride is an end in itself. It's not a means to get to school or to get home. You just like it. You also could think about your favorite food as an example. And that it's a nice example because it's kind of a mix of means and ends. When we eat food, it's always a means to the nutrition it provides, the sustenance it provides. It may not be the reason you're eating something, but it's something that food always does for us. So it's a means to something. But your favorite food, it kind of doesn't. It's not favorite because it's very nourishing. Usually, it's an end in itself. You just love ice cream cones, and even though you're getting some nourishment from it, the ice cream cone experience is an end in itself. So means and ends. One last example, just to cement this idea of means and ends, is friendship. If you think about friendship, ask yourself, is it a means to an end or an end in itself? Is it more like that bus to get you to school, or like the ice cream cone? And I think for most of us, and first intuition would be that it should be an end in itself. Being a friend, having friends, it's like its own reward. You don't use it as a means to some other thing. And in fact, if you think about a situation where somebody uses their friendship with you as a means to something else, you suddenly realize this person isn't hanging out with me because they like hanging out with me, but because there's something else they want, then it maybe doesn't feel like friendship anymore. It feels like something else. So I think it's a very powerful distinction, means and ends. And I learned about it as a freshman in college. And I did this thing kind of at the encouragement of a teacher and discussion with other students. The idea was, what if you thought about your college education not as a means to some other end, but as an end in itself? Now, I'd arrived at Stanford thinking I was going to be a doctor. And so I was thinking about my education as a means to getting into medical school. But here I was kind of falling in love with philosophy. And I used this philosophical distinction as an excuse, in a way, to stop thinking about what comes after college and just think about my college experience. So now back to me as getting my photo taken. So here I was, I'd thought about college as an end in itself. And senior years, I started having to think about, well, what comes next? And here was this photographer saying, what are you going to do next? And so the only thought I had to that point was to go to law school. Just seemed like the thing that a lot of people were doing. My background maybe a reasonable candidate to get into a law school. So let's just do that. So the photographer starts giving me a hard time about that. He's like, oh yeah, wow, law school. The world needs more lawyers. Good for you. It's clear he's giving me a hard time. And then he asks me this question. This is the future you question. 20 years from now, if you looked on your life 20 years from now and consider it a success, what would you have been doing? What would you have done in your life 20 years from now to make your life look like a success? And the first thought that came into my mind was not law school. It was not being a great lawyer. It was not something law degree would get me. It was a thought that I really had never thought of before, honestly. And the answer was, I would make a film as great as an Ingmar Bergman film. Now, you probably have never heard of Ingmar Bergman, but he's a Swedish filmmaker from way back in the day, 60s, 50s, maybe 70s. And I loved movies when I was in college. And his movies, Bergman movies, had a big impact on me. And then here I was suddenly thinking, wow, actually, if you asked me 20 years from now, I would have made a film like a Bergman film that has the impact on other people that his films had on me. So the photographer was like, well, then that's what you should be doing. I don't know why you're not doing that. So that, in the end, changed my life. I mean, the whole drive home, I was thinking about, wait a second, is this what I should be doing? And so after I graduated, I ended up taking a year off just to work and think about what I was going to do next. And I ended up applying to film school. Maybe someday I can tell you how that worked out. But so picturing myself 20 years out led me to a new understanding of my own hopes and dreams, maybe, and it kind of changed my life. So really, two things from this little story. One is just the exercise of imagining myself in the future, but then also in general, thinking about those categories of success. What are the categories of success that I'll use to think about my life 20 years from now? And what it revealed to me in my own case was that one category that kind of came out of it as a surprise was, what would I give to the world? Could I give to the world the kinds of things that have been important to me? Bergman movies were important to me. Could I make that kind of thing and have it be important to other people? I think a lot of careers go this way. I think I hear the story a lot from people who become teachers. They become teachers because of a teacher who had a profound impact on them. I actually don't know if Mr. T has that kind of story, but you should ask him. So now it's your turn. The next thing you're going to do in this little lesson plan we built together is to write about your life 20 years from now. What are the markers of success for you? If you think about that, and be willing to be surprised by your own mind. But are there things that you would have accomplished in the best version of your life, and what are those things? All right, off you go.